25 years to the presidential and parliamentary elections here in Ghana. Hello there, you're watching Connect Africa with me, Blessed Sugan. We're live on DSTV channel 421 and GoTV channel 125 and around the world at myjoyonline.com. Tonight we start off with COP29, where some of the world's most influential figures are notably absent, including leaders from China, the United States, India, Germany and France. But why is this happening? We'll find out shortly. And we're asking the big question tonight, is Africa prepared for another pandemic?
When an outbreak occurs, time will become automatically our first enemy. So if we want to save more life, if we want to mitigate the impact of any emergency situation, you have to be prepared.
There's more coming your way as we hear from the World Health Organization, which is gathering African countries for emergency preparedness here in Accra. We have the latest for you, but first, though, a wrap of some of the major events happening across the continent.
At the COP29 conference in Baku, some of the world's most influential figures are notably absent, including leaders from China, the United States, India, Germany and France. The absence has raised concerns among activists and delegates who worry it signals a lack of commitment from major emitters in addressing the climate emergency. However, many argue that the urgency of the climate crisis remains undiminished and global efforts must continue with or without these prominent figures. The Opposition Alliance of Change in Mauritius has won all 60 seats up for grabs on the archipelago's main island following Sunday's parliamentary election. Opposition leader Navin Ramgoolam, 77, said the power of the people had triumphed. Prime Minister Pravin Jugnauth, 62, had already acknowledged on Monday that his LePIP alliance was heading for a huge defeat. Mauritius is known as one of Africa's most stable democracies, but this election was tainted by a phone-tapping scandal with leaked recordings of public figures posted online. Haiti's new interim Prime Minister Alix Didier Fils-Aimé has been sworn in as the capital, Port-au-Prince, faced a new wave of violence. Shortly after his inauguration, gunfire erupted at Toussaint Louverture International Airport, where gangs targeted a commercial Spirit Airlines flight landing from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Shots fired at the plane struck a flight attendant who sustained minor injuries, according to reports from Spirit Airlines and the U.S. Embassy. The flight, originally bound for Port-au-Prince, was diverted and safely landed in the Dominican Republic. In response, some airlines have temporarily suspended operations to Haiti due to ongoing security concerns. A Moroccan journalist who accused a prominent politician of fraud has been sentenced to prison in a case that has sparked international condemnation from press freedom advocates. Hamid Madoui will serve a 1.5-year sentence and be fined an equivalent of $150,000 after being found guilty of defamation, his attorney Mohamed Hedaj told the Associated Press. Madoui, the editor-in-chief of Badil Info, was prosecuted after a complaint from the Justice Minister Abdelatif Ouabi. Madoui had posted a video on his website accusing Ouabi of corruption and fraud, both of which the Justice Minister denied.
And some of the major news there making rounds across the African continent, but the focus tonight is on that conspicuous absence of global leaders from the COP29 climate conference happening in Azerbaijan, particularly from leadership including that of China, the United States, India, Germany and France, which is sparking concerns among climate activists who view this as troubling signal for the weakened commitment towards the world's largest emitters. Now, activists worry that without any major players coming through and seeing the urgency of addressing climate emergency, the issues of climate may be diminished. And despite this, many also argue that global efforts must press on as the climate crisis that the world is facing can no longer wait. So will the COP29 Azerbaijan be effective as we're looking forward to some deals and, of course, collaboration going into the future? Let's bring in Dr. Mike David Terunga, who is the regional coordinator for the African Citizens Climate International. And Mike Terunga, thank you for spending some time with us here on Connect Africa. Quite a troubling time for those of you who are climate activists and, of course, looking forward to some fruitful deals from COP29. But is it all lost for Africa and the entire world?
Thank you, Blessed, for having me. I would say it's not all lost, but it's a dangerous mistake that those I consider climate terrorists, those who are the cause of this problem, are not at the COP. But should that end the COP? No. We have over 198 countries who are parties to the Paris Agreement. And if you have 3 or 4 missing from the COP, it does not necessarily mean that the COP will not be fruitful. The COP this year has no option than to be fruitful. We do not have time. Globally, the impact of climate change is no longer news. And even in these countries that have deliberately refused to take serious climate action for what I would call political reasons, have also had their own fair share of the climate crisis. So I believe they will still come to the table. It is just a game they are playing, but that game must be over. That business as usual approach is not helping the world. So we are at the verge of getting something right. And this COP is a big and the only opportunity for us to make serious progress, especially for us in Africa. A lot has been promised from different COPs. From the Paris Agreement in 2015 till now, it is about 10 years. Monies have been promised, pledges have been made. We need more commitment, and this is the only opportunity we have this year, that all those pledges that have been made must be redeemed.
And David, that's where Africa is being criticized, isn't it? We seem to be looking for free lunch. It doesn't come as easy as that, because the loss and damage reparations argument has come up strongly. But looking at the less likely commitments that we may get from the heavy emitters, it's very unlikely that that fund may come through for Africa.
Yes, African countries and African leaders need to be wise. How I see this situation is that a few countries sit back and wait for disasters to happen, and then livelihoods of people in Africa and other parts of the world are impacted. And what do they give us? They give us loans. And our leaders are quick to go and take these loans, and then it adds a further burden on our people and our economy. And so our leaders must be wise. Africans especially must come together and say, look, enough is enough. We have all the resources that would take for us to build climate resilience on this continent. We don't have to go begging. But of course, it is not wrong to ask for reparations. It is not wrong to ask for debt forgiveness. After all, these countries developed using this dirty energy that has put us in this global mess. So they must pay for it. So we are not wrong in asking for grants. And that's why most of us, we say, instead of loans, we should be giving grants to enable us solve this problem. But of course, when you come back home also, our leaders in most parts of Africa are treating climate change with kid gloves. It's an issue that is impacting the security of the continent. It's an issue that is impacting poverty. It's an issue that is also affecting the democracy that we're trying to build on the continent. So we need to show leadership, even locally, before going out to beg, in quotes, for grants and for loans.
Yeah, how about African solutions for African problems? Our own adaptation strategy hasn't been very much effective, has it?
Of course, adaptation is very local. Climate change solutions are local. So we have to wait inwards. We have to look inwards. We don't have to wait for the neo-colonialists to be pushing down technology on us. But that is the plan. So we need to be wise as a people. I mean, when you talk of electric vehicles and all of that, how many countries in Africa are producing those, right? But we have those critical mineral resources that are necessary for energy transition on the continent. But we are not developing all of these. We still export it as raw materials and taking finished product, putting us more in debt. This has to stop.
We're looking forward to what might happen, irrespective of the participation from these major economies. What's your expectation going into COP29?
So the leaders at the COP must take responsibility, even with or without the United States. We do not have the choice. At the moment, a lot of people, including myself, have some kind of low expectation about the outcome of this COP. And that is why so many people are not going to the COP in Azerbaijan. But I am asking the world leaders at the COP to prove everyone wrong that this COP should become one of the best COP that we have had. That is the COP that will deliver the needed climate finance for adaptation in Africa. That is what Africa needs and nothing more.
We wait to see what the outcome will be. Dr. Mike Terunga, thank you for joining us here on Connect Africa. We stay on the continent because the COVID-19 pandemic is one of just the numerous global health emergencies which has exposed vulnerabilities in Africa's health systems. Now, till date, some African countries are still grappling with developing an effective response mechanism to tackle the Marburg virus, which sparked a new wave across the continent. However, in a close collaboration with African countries, the World Health Organization is now partnering Ghana and other African countries to test rapid response capabilities to prevent and also to manage the high-risk outbreaks. On the sidelines of this simulation exercise, which is taking part as part of the many activities happening in Accra this week, we caught up with the regional advisor in charge of emergency preparedness at the World Health Organization Africa office, Maury Keita. Maury Keita, thank you for talking to Joy News. The World Health Organization is definitely part of the 3 sister UN agencies collaborating to implement the Initiate Health program. It's part of the COVID preparedness. But of course, it was on paper, now it's become a reality. Looking at what we're seeing here today, what's the effect on, the impact on public health for Ghana, and not just Ghana, but across the African continent?
Thank you very much. This Initiate simulation exercise is an opportunity in which WHO and other UN agencies are taking part, as well as NGOs and Ghana MOH. And just to tell you that simulation exercise is very important, not only for WHO, but for all the countries, because it's one of the monitoring and evaluation framework of international health regulation called capacity. So each country has to test its capacity responding to any outbreak or any emergency situation. So it's my first time to take part of this initiative in which we have a number of UN agencies and NGOs. So it's an opportunity because we know that Ghana experienced the Marburg outbreak a few years ago, and we wanted to leverage in the Ghana capacity to share the lessons and to make sure we have an innovative tools to be established when an outbreak occurs in any place of this continent.
I see. But then there are still more emerging emergencies. We haven't prepared for it, but it's here with us. Mpox was the latest to have engulfed the African region, raising concerns about it really you know, we can ever get out of the woods. Do you feel that this measure alone is enough in addressing the problem that we're facing?
No, it's not alone, but we have to take it as part of a whole structures. So in emergency response, we have different players, and each has to play its roles. And this is only like an element of this intervention. So, but what we recommend to countries is to be prepared, because when an outbreak occurs, time will become automatically our first enemy. So if we want to save more life, if we want to mitigate the impact of any emergency situation, you have to be prepared. And simulation exercise is part of these preparedness activities. That's why I'm here.
On the continental level, you know, at that level, there's a question about how Africa is faring in terms of readiness for the emergence of any emergencies. Are we doing well as a continent, and how is the World Health Organization working together with African countries to support that process?
Yes, I think we are doing our best to strengthen the preparedness capacity in the African region. And personally, for our program as preparedness, we are playing a critical role in governance. We are like supporting the intergovernmental negotiation now on pandemic treaty, maybe you are aware of. We also played a critical role in the amendment of the International Health Regulation. We have now a new version of the IHR tools. So, and apart from that, we are also encouraging a country, or maybe helping country to do risk profiling, because if you want to be prepared, you have to know exactly to what prepare.
Yeah.
And doing this risk profiling will facilitate, you know, the identification of the major hazard, and to prepare a contingency plan which will be maybe implemented when the outbreak will be in place. So apart from this also risk profiling, we are also strengthening country capacity in joint external evaluation. So because IHR capacity is very important, and to identify gaps in which country need to fit and make sure they are prepared to respond to any emergency. Apart from that also, we are also playing a critical role in policy, so drawing from research evidence, because as WHO, all our recommendations are evidence-based.
Right.
And we are drawing lessons from our previous outbreak to make it as a recommendation for the next outbreaks. So now, for example, if we were facing challenges to respond to COVID-19, and now we are responding to mpox on the continent, and we are now talking about also the next pandemic. So the next pandemic is not about if, it's about when, because we are pretty sure that the next pandemic will occur.
And I'm sure that
we have to be prepared for that.
In fact, I'm sure that you have people walking up to you, maybe your relations or even friends walk up to you and say, when are we seeing the next pandemic? What do you say to such people?
The next pandemic, nobody can tell you exactly when the next pandemic will occur. But what I will say to my colleague or my brothers is to just be prepared, as the next pandemic will be occurring tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. So just to be prepared today, not to wait for maybe years to be prepared for the next pandemic, because just this mpox is like an alert for us as a regional office, as a continent, to draw lesson here and to be prepared.
Right.
So to be prepared, we have to take into consideration our own context. So each country has its own context, and this context has to be taken into consideration while developing preparedness plan.
Right.
So that's why I was talking about risk profiling, and in which we have to also be very cautious,
Right.
and to go with One Health approach. One Health approach and all hazard approach is very important while preparing for emergencies.
And speaking about the risk factors, concerns are, growing over the mpox now, because at least that's what is immediately with us. Would you say that Ghana and other African countries are out of the woods yet? What do you feel is the assessment of the situation now?
I think they are responding. Ghana is responding properly to this outbreak, as well as other countries. We know that most of the cases are coming from DRC because of the huge number of cases in this country. But just to remind you that mpox is also endemic in this area.
Right.
So this means that community are aware of mpox. They used to have mpox cases, but the only things in DRC is that we are now reporting cases in area
Like
where
rural areas, I guess.
not rural area, even urban area.
Right,
Now
right.
Kinshasa, the capital city, is reporting a huge number of cases.
Right.
But in the previous, Kinshasa was not reporting cases of mpox. So that's why we are supporting, we are there, we are supporting Kinshasa, we are supporting the DRC, as well as all the country on the continent. But for mpox especially, I just want to maybe flag that
Yes,
WHO and the Africa CDC are working together, closely working together, because we have a joint action plan, and we have also a joint continental preparedness and response plan to mpox. And we have one single coordination mechanism established in the DRC, in which we have a continental IM from Africa CDC and one from WHO, closely working together strategically to respond to this outbreak at the continent.
Are you then suggesting that countries such as Ghana should not be worried about mpox?
Because of the number of cases, I will say yes.
Okay.
And because of Ghana has capacity in place, and they are prepared. And we know how Ghana responded to Marburg outbreak. It was amazing, because it was controlled in a few months. And this experience is for us very important, and that means we have a capacity in Ghana. And for mpox, a disease like mpox, I think Ghana will be responding it properly in timely manners.
Going into the future, what sort of collaborations would you want to see between African countries towards responding to emergencies?
Yeah, this is an important question, and I think I was just mentioning One Health approach, and this One Health approach has to be maybe interpreted in different way. Right. We are encouraging countries to have collaboration, and because health doesn't know exactly the borders. And in most of the communities at the border, when you go at the border, it's the same family, it's the same community you will find. The same, they are maybe usually speaking the same language and sharing the same customs. Right. So that means that we need to collaborate from the community level until the national level to make sure we have a strong collaboration while responding to any emergency situation in the country, in the continent.
What will be your final message to Africans who are worried that, well, pandemics or epidemics are becoming much more an African problem than a global problem? What will be your message to Africans on that?
My first and my last message will be just to be prepared. And I'm encouraging all the countries all the donors, all the communities to invest in preparedness, to be sure to mitigate the impact of health emergencies. If you are prepared, you will be ready to respond. Nobody today, even WHO, cannot tell to any country that you will not have any outbreak or you will not have any emergency situations. It will happen. This is an evidence. It will happen. So the best way to mitigate the impact of emergency, to save more lives, is to invest in preparedness. And we have a flagship project being implemented across the continent, across the region, WHO region, and we are encouraging countries, our member states, to reinforce their capacity in this area.
Maury Keita, thank you so much for
You're
talking
welcome.
to us.
Yeah.
And watch a playback of that interaction with Maury Keita on all of our social media handles and also at myjoyonline.com. Pleasure being here with you on Connect Africa. I'm Blessed Sugan. Of course, we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.